Why hello, this is Soul with another video, and today I wanted to talk about the two mini novellas that were released digitally, entitled Elegy and A Good War. I'm going to talk about a couple of highlights, and just so you know, you can click away from what you're seeing if you want to look at my dumb face and whatever's behind me, maybe the title screen. You can click over and do whatever the heck you want, just have a listen and enjoy. So I wanted to talk about what I liked and, some of what I liked and didn't like, a couple of highlights and things like that. And of course, reflect on these two books, Elegy and A Good War, and compare them to the War of Thorns event that we played through, because I guess kind of a complaint that I have, and this sort of reflects a lot of the sentiment among the community who's really big onto lore stuff. It's that there's a lot of disconnect. There's a lot of disconnect between the books and what we experience in game, and it's kind of a shame. It's almost like saying that the events of Elegy and A Good War combined with the War of Thorns, this really shouldn't have been like a pre-expansion event. This should have been like a patch almost. This could have been stretched out to make a pretty meaty piece of content, but at the same time not so meaty. It would have been just kind of this one-time event that we could have played through a little bit more, but I guess there could have been a lot more production value that had gone into this pre-expansion event. But I mean, we got what we got. It is unfortunate that we have this alignment and disconnect, and the whole argument that, hey, I as a player should be able to experience everything in game. I do think that's a valid argument, but we just got to get past that. It is what it is, and we just got to get to reacting to what went on with these otherwise really good reads. I advise that if you haven't read these two stories, that you go. I'm gonna have a link below. Take a look at those. They are very good reads. Bullet points and just watching this video will not do it justice at all. But what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to talk about a couple of highlights that might not have been talked about very much, and just kind of give my own take and my perspective on it. Now, while I'm telling you folks at home and on the toilet to definitely read these books, it's not necessary to read them in order to understand what's going on in the story. What we see in the Warbringers scenario, the Warbringers video, as well as the War of Thorns gameplay, it all comes out the same. Tree burns down, it's Sylvanas' fault, everyone hates her, yada yada yada. But it's the details that make it fun and add a little bit of personality into things. We learn about a couple of characters, namely Delaryn Summermoon, who is one of the, I believe she starts off as a lieutenant and ends up as a commander. She's the one who is, for the most part, leading the defense of Ashenvale as well as Darkshore. We also have another character by the name of Lorash. He is a Blood Elf rogue. Looking at these two characters, and it's unfortunate that Lorash, the Blood Elf rogue, has a much smaller part than Delaryn. You get personal with both of them. Delaryn has I guess kind of a lover named Farron. He's a druid. And this druid guy, while he fights valiantly for the defense of Ashenvale, he gets cut down pretty quick by Saurfang, and I'm going to get to a big critique about Ashenvale in just a bit. Meanwhile, Lorash tries to confront Malfurion himself. It ends in absolute disaster, and even Sylvanas, who kind of tries to jump in and save the day, comes in a little bit too late and he dies, but not before speaking briefly with Malfurion about what he as what he as the Blood Elf race had suffered through at the hands of the Night Elves. As you may know, after the Sundering, a bunch of the Highborn were kicked out by the Night Elves and shipped off to wherever. They did not have a good time. Lorash lost his dad as they were trying to meander their way over to what would eventually become Silvermoon. Silvermoon, as you know, was nearly raised by the Scourge. His mother was killed along with most of his race. So Lorash has a grudge, and regardless of how you justify it, he's holding it against Malfurion. He's holding him responsible. So let me once again address the biggest critique about the books as opposed to the War of Thorns campaign. It's that the War of Thorns campaign didn't quite play out the same way at all. Most of the action in the books takes place in Ashenvale, and not exactly Darkshore. Once the Horde are able to get through to Darkshore, that's when they just kind of beeline to the very end. So it is quite inconsistent, although this entire campaign does take a number of days for it to go all the way through. There are a couple of other big indiscrepancies to consider, like the attack where Malfurion nearly kills Saurfang and then Sylvanas comes in to save the day. That event appears to take place in between the time when the Horde champion is flying from Astronar to Zormgarn back. So during that sequence, there's just a whole lot of stuff that happens there, which sounds really, really weird. And I was definitely wrong about the Night Elf hubris, the idea that, hey, why didn't the Kaldorei escape much sooner? It turns out that they were trying to escape that much sooner, like right when they knew that the Horde were attacking. It's just that logistically, just the logistics and the number of people that needed to be teleported out was just so great that they were doing it, they were teleporting people out the entire time up until literally the very last second. But that's the last I'm going to talk about the big inconsistencies. It's just really weird. You know, people that want to talk smack about it, feel free to go ahead. I'm not going to defend Blizzard at all on this one. But let's talk about the big undead female fish. You know what I'm talking about? Sylvanas' motivations and how it clashes with Saurfang and his reasoning and his sense of honor. I find it interesting that the writers were able to make their way through it and basically justify what Sylvanas is doing. Now, don't get me wrong, she's a jerk face. She's an asshole. She's doing like really, really awful stuff. But each way through, it appears that she is in control of herself, which is something that I've been saying again and again, that I'm glad that she is in full control of what she's doing, that she's making decisions on her own, and that this isn't some sort of external influence. I'm not seeing a lick of that in any of these readings. I very much disagree with many other analysts that are looking at this lore and saying, and concluding, I'm sorry, that Sylvanas just all of a sudden turned around and decided, burn the tree. Because in the reading, it's explained pretty explicitly, like the whole buildup of what Sylvanas' plan is, the fact that it failed, and her reaction to it. And she decided to blame Saurfang for it. However, she also acknowledges in the text that she blames herself entirely because she's the war chief. That's kind of what you do. Sylvanas' objective here wasn't exactly to capture Teldrassil or Darnassus or necessarily even burn it down. It's to find and execute on some sort of method to kill hope and sow discord within the Alliance. It does obviously in fact involve capturing Darnassus, holding it hostage, as well as killing Malfurion. That sort of destabilization is something that even Saurfang acknowledges, and then what's funny is that the route of this campaign, the whole planning, was done by Saurfang himself. Sylvanas was playing kind of the support role up until the point where the plan fell apart, and the plan fell apart because Saurfang failed to kill Malfurion. Maybe this is kind of a guilt thing, or maybe it's Sylvanas' mismanagement of Saurfang to tell him, hey, you know what, you threw an axe in Malfurion's back, you get the prize, go ahead and cut off his head because you earned it. Good job, buddy. Obviously, that didn't play very well, but the point is that Saurfang did not kill Malfurion and walked back towards Sylvanas with his head held up high, as if he was proud that he did the honorable thing. And yeah, cool. He did the honorable thing by not killing his enemy in this dishonorable way. But Sylvanas is obviously focused on the result, the plan. Stick to the plan. Saurfang did not stick to the plan, so as soon as that happened, even before she talked with Delaryn, she started thinking about plan B. How am I going to spread terror among the Alliance without a dead Malfurion? I'm going to read this part that Sylvanas says to Saurfang. She says, "This was your battle, your strategy, and your failure. Darnassus was never the prize. It was a wedge that would split the Alliance apart. It was the weapon that would destroy hope. And you, my master strategist, gave that up to spare an enemy you defeated. So I've taken it back. When they come for us, they will do so in pain, not in glory. That may be our only chance at victory now." So Sylvanas is trying to improvise, you know, of course, with her very cold-hearted bitch kind of flavor, but there was this plan in place. And Sylvanas tried to improvise wherever she could. Like when she was kind of sort of fighting with Malfurion, and we're not quite sure if she was losing or not, according to the book, Saurfang helps out Sylvanas. Sylvanas gives him credit, walks off, walks with Nathanos and says, "How do you think the Kaldorei will take it?" Sylvanas asked. "Their legendary leader, the one who's guided them through 10,000 years of trials and terrors, killed by an orc with an axe." There's that credit again. She wanted this to be Saurfang's war, and she's just kind of playing on the sidelines because apparently the Horde would see a very aggressive stance by Sylvanas as dishonorable. having a war waged by Saurfang would be considered honorable according to this plot thread. The fact that he failed in his objectives though, Sylvanas just had to improvise in like the most brutal way possible. Unfortunately though, she still screwed up. She very much underestimated Anduin and his ability to mature even as a young king. Maybe part of that is because her ending up burning the tree and doing such a, committing such a heinous act wouldn't do anything but unite the alliance against her. But what she had originally hoped would have happened absolutely did not. But now, unfortunately, we have to speculate. From the early analysis from Wowhead, including Novel, there is this thing that sort of alludes to Elune standing against Sylvanas, but part of me thinks that it is more figurative than anything. There's the period where Saurfang is about to strike down Malfurion and he feels like he's being stopped, as if Elune was having some sort of influence on him. However, in the Elegy version of this story, when Tyrande is trying to find Malfurion, she calls upon Elune to try to find him, and a light shines on his location. That same light could have been what Saurfang was feeling too. But going back to Sylvanas, her kind of musing over the idea that Elune herself will be standing against her along with the Alliance, along with whoever, just kind of insists that whatever it is that she does have planned, that there are going to be a large number of factions and entities and anything that's going to try to stop her. As for what? No clue. There's no clear indication that capturing Teldrassil or burning it is part of whatever grand or true objective that she actually has. This might just be step one of her grand plan, because she's undead. She has all the time in the world. And part of securing that time is to ensure peace, at least on her terms, by enacting this entire plan. So I would like to think that I am kind of right about the things that I've been speculating this whole time with regards to Sylvanas justifying the war, and more importantly, justifying the burning of Teldrassil. Absolutely yes, both Saurfang and Nathanos were very surprised with Sylvanas' seemingly sudden turn, prepared to invade the tree at one moment, burn it the next. But she's also right when, and I do apologize that I'm kind of talking in circles, I'm just kind of reacting to this whole thing. She is kind of right when she tells Saurfang how much he screwed up by letting Malfurion live. By letting him live, there's now a story to tell. There is now hope. Malfurion somehow survived, and that gives the Alliance hope for victory, that they can, that no matter how dark things get, that they can prevail in the end. Of course, Saurfang was that miracle, so, details. But to kind of close these meandering thoughts, after reading this, and again, I encourage you folks at home and elsewhere to read it, I'm sold. These were some very, very effective reads. They pretty much cover everything from the motivations of Sylvanas and the Horde to the appropriate reactions from the Alliance, and it adds so many small details that really highlight the brutality from both the Horde and the Night Elves when it comes to their advance through Ashenvale and Darkshore, and the Night Elves' very desperate attempt to defend themselves. So I'm totally sold on the faction war. I don't think that the expansion, this 8.0 part of the expansion, would have been able to sell itself if it wasn't for something just totally dastardly and heinous. Call it everything that you want, because the book did. They called it like evil and genocide and all sorts of stuff, and let's just run with all of that, because that's what you need in order to have this really meaty conflict between these factions. But these two books help to illustrate the idea of what justifies both of these sides to do what they want to do, even if there is a pretty clear line of what is honorable. So that kind of ends my ramble, and I appreciate you listening. So again, go ahead and read it and let me know what you think of these two books in a comment below. What do you think of the story? I mean, I probably already know how you feel about it not being very well connected with the game, but what do you think about the story itself? Does it sell for you? Was it good? What do you think of the major players or even the minor characters that we run into in these stories? Do you hope to see a little bit more of them? Or does this change or validate your current feelings that you have for the Alliance and the Horde and what they're doing right now? So I hope that you enjoyed this listen. If you were looking at the screen the whole time, that was kind of a waste of eyeballs, but I appreciate that too, I suppose. But please hit that like button somewhere there in the corner, and otherwise subscribe for more of this and all things Warcraft. I'll see you in the ruins of the Undercity. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.